Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HandfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HandfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HandfordCapital.com.
Welcome to the Friday edition of the Tough Decisions podcast. This is your host, Dan and Dennae, and we want to talk today about something that we've done recently with our staff and I think went really well and got some good feedback from them. So I want to kind of give you an idea of what we did and maybe give you some ideas that you can use with your staff, large or small. What we did recently, I think, would work for any size company and staff and will provide some good feedback and things that you can work with. So we did that actually this week, Dan, with our managers. So not the entire staff, but with our management, and had a really good discussion, I think, on several things and got their ideas where we need to improve.
Yeah, so one of the things that most of you, if you've listened to any of our episodes, you know that we own 5 medical offices here in South Carolina. And at this point, the businesses are at a passive stance for us, except for the fact that every Monday morning we get financial reports sent to our emails, or we can have a 30,000-foot view on how things are running. And so if we need to pivot, we can pivot sooner rather than later. And at one point, we were doing these financial reports on a quarterly basis. But as we started to expand and grow, we realized that if we took our eye off the ball for an entire quarter, the numbers might go down before we looked at the next set of numbers, and we didn't have enough time to pivot fast enough. And so we started to look at those reports on a monthly basis at that time. And then since we continue to expand to even more clinics, we are now looking at those on a weekly basis. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but we want to make sure that our staff is always looking at those numbers and having an eye on those as well as us. And then we also have a monthly corporate meeting with our corporate team. And then once a quarter, we get together with our staff and that are more boots on the ground, the office managers in each one of the offices and the department heads. And so we all get together. Today was the day. We got together this morning. They came in. We spent 4 or 5 hours. The first 2 hours was with our corporate team, and then the next 3 hours with the rest of our team. And the purpose of this meeting is really to make sure that we have a good grasp on how things are running throughout the entire organization. And so I decided to open it up and allow our staff to not necessarily have a complaint day, if you will, but to go around the room and not just ask for volunteers to give us, feedback on various, areas that the organization could improve upon, but we had them go around the room. We want, person by person, because when you really want to get a lot of feedback from your team, one of the best things you can do is, instead of just, having a meeting and saying, hey, raise your hand if you have something to talk about, because people sometimes just don't want to say anything because they just, for some reason are a little more shy or introverted.
Inevitably, in any meeting, you have a handful of people that will be more than happy to talk the entire meeting, and you have a handful of people that will be more than happy to sit quietly. But a lot of times, it's the people that sit quietly that have the most profound observations, but you just have to get them to share it. So what you did, I think, was really good in that you went around the room and you forced everyone to say something, and they had to contribute. And these are high level people, so they have something to say. It's just, sometimes their personalities cause them to hold back a little bit.
Well, and in the beginning of the meeting, I said, this is not to point fingers at any one person or department, but it's really just to say, hey, this is something that I see that we can improve upon as a whole and as an entire organization. And so we went around the room person by person and had them talk to us about what are some areas, because we're not perfect and we're not ever going to be perfect, but we always should be on that path of trying to get to that point of I don't know if I would necessarily say perfection, but I guess you could always say you're always trying to reach that level of perfection, even though you'll never get there. But we always are going to have things throughout our life cycle of our businesses that we're working on, and talking to your team and your staff, especially as you grow. And we're right at the 50 employee mark. And so we do have a lot of personnel on the ground, and we want to make sure that, from the top, we're able to really listen to those people and really figure out what can we focus our energies and efforts on to improve the different systems and procedures and processes in the business.
Yeah, and there's so many things that happen today now that I think about it even in retrospect a little more, because we did that and we were able to listen to them and really hear some of their feedback and get some of their ideas. But in a lot of ways, we're also able to model for them the way that we want them to manage. And that is being open to constructive criticism and being open to change and being open to feedback themselves. And the reason I was thinking about that is what we kind of touched on at the end, is that a lot of them, especially as our office managers, this is their first management position. And so I feel strongly that they're good people and that they're on board with our vision, but they're still learning a lot about management. And so it is a learning process, no matter how qualified they are or how long they've been with your organization. When you make that jump from, just entry-level employee into management, there's a lot to learn. And so a lot of them are still going through that process as well. So I think it's important for us to provide them the support. And that's something that I've talked about previously in some Sunday podcasts is, supporting your team and not just assuming that they're going to learn the leadership that you want them to, but actually being proactive and teaching them how to lead. That's important when we're not in the office every single day in every location.
And as we do our next Friday episode, we're going to dive into some of these different topics that our team brought up that are areas of improvement in our own business that we have. And I think that going through these will help you in your business and be able to help you understand how to work properly and how to work more efficiently with your team. And so we'll dive into some of those next week on the next Friday episode so that you can kind of see some of those high-level things that our team brought up. And some of them will be pretty easy stuff that, I think you're going to have a hard time in any business getting rid of completely, but it's things that you should always be cognizant of and always be, aware of, and trying to always work on those different areas. And the next thing that we did after we went around the room and talked about all the things that they didn't like, we also went around the room and changed it up and said, now I want to go around the room and have you talk about the positive thing. What does your department or your particular office do really, really well?
Yeah, that was interesting to get them thinking that way too, because you're right. We didn't want that meeting to be a gripe session. We wanted to be productive, and I feel like it was, but that was a good step in getting to that point because we were able to hear from each one of them and what they really felt like their team was good at. And, I wouldn't say there was a lot of surprises for me in hearing their feedback there, but it was good to see them reflect on that and really take ownership of what they were good at and realizing that, they had, despite the challenges, they had made progress and their team had excelled in certain areas.
I don't want to go through each one of their particular things that they were the best at on this episode. We might dive into some of those next week, as well as some of the things that they had some complaints about. But I want you to share what you shared on what you think that you do really well with the business.
Well, I think I actually messed this whole question up when it came to my turn because we were all sharing things that what we excelled at personally. And it's been a while since I've been in any of the clinics and actually worked a shift or a day or a week or whatever. So what I told them was I just felt like as a whole, we were in a very good place personnel wise. And that's something that you and I periodically and regularly stop and evaluate. Where are we with our personnel? Are there any places where we're weak? And if so, what do we need to do about that? But just looking around the room today really made me stop and appreciate where we were now because I know the struggles that we've had. And, there were days and weeks when could be very frustrating and very discouraging even because it felt like you were never going to find the right person for those positions. And at times it felt like there were so many positions that we were looking for that right fit. But as I looked around the room today, I said, and I told the managers this, I feel like we're in a really good place as far as the management goes now. And that's a good feeling. And I don't know a lot of the, the entry level front desk and medical assistants and that. I don't know a lot of them now, but just looking around the room at our managers made me feel really good knowing that when we can't be everywhere all the time, that group of people is representing us, because I think for the most part they do a really good job.
And I'll share with you when it came to my turn, because after I addressed everybody in the room, they were like, well, what about you, Dan? And I had already thought about it beforehand because I figured that was going to probably happen. And I would say that one of the biggest things that I have excelled at is the art of delegation. And of course, when I said that, they all, agreed with me and, oh yeah, you're
and
very
rolled
good
our
at that.
eyes.
Yes. And I do feel like I'm good at that. And I feel like it has been a skill that I've had to cultivate over the years and learn, because in the beginning, it was very hard because I know that I'm good at a lot of things and that I can do things better than most people. And I know that's kind of, it sounds a little bit arrogant of myself, but it's a mental problem that I have. And I understand that. And, that's one of the things that it's hard for somebody who has that mentality to delegate. And I've had to learn to delegate and learn to be able to, turf off tasks to somebody else, even if they can only do it at 80, 85% of the level that I could do it. It's still better for me to have them do it because I can move on to bigger, better, and greater things that I want to focus and focus my time and energy and efforts on.
I was going to say exactly what you just said, is that that's not something that you've always been good at. So, the encouraging thing is for people who may be listening who want to get to that point, is that that's something that can be learned. But like a lot of other things, it's about the way you think about them, because you have to take that mindset shift from, like what you said, it's better for me to let someone else do that because my time is more valuable over here. But if I'm not willing to give that up, then I'm always going to have to do it. The other thing I was thinking about is, looking around the room today, we had a lot of, I call them young people, but they're not that young. They're just younger than us. And we could sit here and try to manage from afar all these different offices. We wouldn't be extremely effective, although I think we could set up a system whereby it could be done. But we would also be taking away a lot of growth opportunities for them. And part of being an entrepreneur and part of making it about more than just yourself is allowing these other people to step up and really, grow and develop as people themselves. And that was kind of neat to see that today too, that we had a lot of younger people in there that are developing and growing themselves and maturing and becoming, different people because of the opportunities that they get in our businesses.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Tough Decisions podcast. Next Friday, we're going to be diving into this very same topic and talking about some of these topics that were brought up during this meeting so that you can actually learn some of those things from our own boots on the ground from our own businesses. So make sure you stay tuned for that next week. And until then, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.